At 9:17 that night, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Daniel's name flashed across the screen. "I'm dropping the kids at your place tomorrow morning. Watch them carefully." I read it twice. "No asterisk, can you asterisk? No asterisk, please asterisk." Not even a time he planned to come back. My older brother had already decided that because I was his unmarried sister with no children, my Saturday belonged to him. I typed back immediately. "I won't be home tomorrow. You need to make other arrangements." His reply came before I could put the phone down. "Doesn't matter. Mom gave me your spare key." I stopped moving. The babysitting demand was irritating. That message was something else. Mom had one key to my condo, and I had given it to her for emergencies. If I got locked out, if a pipe burst while I was traveling, if something happened that genuinely required someone to get inside. Not so Daniel could walk into my home after I told him no. I called her. "Mom, did you give Daniel my key?" She sighed like I was the problem. "Daniel needs help, Samantha. You have plenty of space. Stop making this difficult." I said I won't be home. "They're your niece and nephew." "That doesn't give him permission to enter my apartment." Her tone hardened. "Why do you always have to turn everything into an issue?" That was the sentence I had heard in different forms my entire life. Daniel wanted something, Mom made it reasonable, and I was expected to give in because resisting made me difficult. This time, I ended the call. I took screenshots of Daniel's messages and called my building's overnight security desk. "My brother has a key to my condo that I never authorized him to have," I said. "I need the lock changed tonight, and I need his name blocked from entry unless I personally approve it." Because I owned the unit and could verify everything, management authorized an emergency locksmith. Before midnight, I stood in my hallway watching the old lock cylinder come out. Daniel still thought he was arriving at 8 in the morning, opening my door, and leaving 2 children inside whether I agreed or not. He had no idea his key no longer worked. When I finished signing the security restriction, the supervisor behind the desk looked at his computer, then back at me. "Ms. Andrew." His expression had changed. "There's something else you should probably see." I frowned. "What?" He turned the monitor slightly toward me. And there, under my unit number, was Daniel's name. Already in the building's security records. Why had my brother been documented at my condo before tonight? I should have gone upstairs. Instead, I followed the security supervisor behind the front desk. He pulled up the access notes connected to my unit and rotated the monitor toward me. "There are 2 previous entries involving your brother," he said. I stared at the dates. Both were from the previous month. Both happened while I was away. The supervisor opened the first report. "Your brother told the desk your mother had authorized him to pick something up for you." My stomach tightened. I never asked him to pick anything up. He opened the second note. "A resident on your floor reported seeing him outside your door carrying 2 shopping bags." I looked at him. Did he go inside? "He had a physical key and identified himself as your brother. There was no forced entry alert." That answered enough. Mom hadn't handed Daniel my spare key tonight because of some last-minute childcare emergency. He'd already had it. I stepped away from the desk and called him. Daniel answered, sounding annoyed. "What now?" "How long have you had my key?" Silence. Then he scoffed. "Mom gave it to me because you make everything complicated." That wasn't my question. "Samantha, have you been inside my condo when I wasn't home?" Another pause. Then Daniel said the one thing he probably thought would calm me down. "It's not like I stole anything." I gripped the phone tighter. I hadn't accused him of stealing. "Daniel, listen carefully. Do not come into my building tomorrow. Do not leave your children here. You do not have permission." He laughed. Actually laughed. "I'll be there at 8. The call ended. I forwarded the entire text exchange to building management, including my written refusal and Daniel's message about Mom giving him my key. The supervisor added an alert to my unit and briefed the morning security team. "If he comes," he said, "he won't be allowed upstairs without your direct authorization." For once, I didn't call Mom again. I didn't negotiate. I didn't try to make Daniel understand. I went upstairs and locked my brand new door. At 7:52 the next morning, my phone lit up. A notification from the lobby security system filled the screen. Daniel ANDRW, entry DNIED. At 7:53 a.m., I opened the building's security feed from a cafe a few minutes away. Daniel was standing in the lobby. He had 2 backpacks slung over one shoulder, and my niece and nephew stood beside him. He looked completely confident. Daniel walked to the security desk, pulled my old key from his pocket, and held it up. My sister, expecting them. The guard glanced at the alert attached to my unit. "No, sir. Ms. Andrews specifically instructed us not to admit you." Daniel's face tightened. "What are you talking about? I have her key." "That does not authorize entry." Daniel immediately called Mom and put her on speaker. "I gave him permission," she announced. The guard remained calm. "Ma'am, are you the owner or resident of the unit?" "No, but Samantha is my daughter." "Then you cannot authorize someone to enter her residence." People were moving through the lobby now. Daniel lowered his voice, but his frustration was obvious. "She's my sister. Those are her niece and nephew. And she has expressly denied you access." Then Daniel made the mistake that changed everything. "My mother gave me this key weeks ago. I've been here before." I stared at the feed. Weeks. So last night hadn't started this. It had exposed it. Daniel stepped around the desk toward the elevators. The guard immediately moved in front of him. "Sir, stop. I'm not doing this. You are not authorized beyond this point." 2 uniformed police officers standing near the property manager turned toward them. They were already there discussing the unauthorized access documentation from the previous night. When Daniel tried to continue toward the elevators, both officers approached. Security called me. I left the cafe and reached the building minutes later. Daniel spotted me immediately. "You seriously called the police over babysitting?" "No." I held up my phone. On the screen were his own words. "I won't be home." And beneath them, "Doesn't matter. Mom gave me your spare key." "I told you not to enter my home." Daniel opened his mouth. But the property manager stepped between us. He looked directly at my brother. "Sir, this stopped being about babysitting when you admitted you'd already been inside her home." Daniel's face changed instantly. "What does that even mean?" he demanded. Before the property manager could answer, the lobby doors opened. Mom hurried inside. Daniel had called her. She walked straight toward us with the expression she always wore when she expected to settle a family disagreement by telling me to stop resisting. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Why are police involved?" The property manager didn't argue with her. "Mrs. Andrew, when did you give Daniel the emergency key to Samantha's condo?" Mom hesitated. Daniel looked at her. "Mom." She folded her arms. "A few weeks ago." I stared at her. "Did you ever tell me?" Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. The property manager pulled up the 2 earlier security reports. Daniel suddenly became defensive. "This is ridiculous. I only went inside to pick up a couple things Mom said Samantha wouldn't mind me taking." I turned toward him. "What things?" Silence. He had just admitted it himself. He hadn't merely possessed my key. He had entered my home without telling me. One of the officers stepped forward. "Mr. Andrew, the resident has explicitly revoked permission for you to enter. You cannot go upstairs, and you cannot leave these children here when no responsible adult has agreed to receive them." Daniel glanced at his kids. So what am I supposed to do? Arrange childcare somewhere else, I said. Mom immediately turned on me. Samantha, they're children. You could just. No. One word. No explanation. No negotiation. I faced the property manager. Remove Daniel from my authorized visitor list and revoke my mother's emergency access too. Mom blinked. You're taking my key. You already gave it away. The manager placed the incident paperwork on the desk. I signed it. Daniel was handed written notice that any future attempt to access my unit or secured residential areas without authorization could result in his removal and further police involvement. For the first time, neither Daniel nor Mom had anything they could pressure me into changing. Then my phone started ringing. I looked down. Daniel Andrew. I slowly raised my eyes. He was standing less than 10 feet away, phone in his hand. I declined the call. Mom suddenly looked at him. Fine. Daniel froze. She pointed at him. Tell her why you were really going into the apartment. Daniel stared at Mom. For several seconds, the only sound in the lobby was my niece shifting her backpack from one shoulder to the other. Then Daniel exhaled. Fine. He looked at me. Mom said you wouldn't care. About what? He glanced toward the floor. Using the condo sometimes. That was when the entire situation finally came together. Mom had decided that because I traveled regularly for work and lived alone, my home was somehow available whenever I wasn't using it. Weeks earlier, she'd given Daniel my emergency key without telling me. And he'd used it twice. The first time, Daniel admitted, Mom said there were a couple household things you wouldn't miss. My jaw tightened. You went into my home to take things. They weren't anything important. That wasn't your decision. He rubbed the back of his neck. The second time, I had errands nearby. Your place was closer than driving all the way home, so I waited there for a while. I turned toward Mom. You knew. She looked away. That was my answer. Suddenly, Daniel's text from the night before made perfect sense. Doesn't matter. Mom gave me your spare key. He hadn't written that because he was desperate. He'd written it because, for weeks, both of them had been operating under the assumption that my permission was optional. I looked directly at Mom. When I gave you that key, what did I tell you it was for? Her voice dropped. Emergencies. Was Daniel needing somewhere to sit an emergency? She said nothing. Daniel stepped in. We're family, Samantha. Families help each other. Help is something you ask for. He went quiet. You told me you were leaving your children at my home after I explicitly said I wouldn't be there. You planned to unlock my door anyway. That's not asking for help. Neither of them had an answer. The officers instructed Daniel to leave the property and arrange alternative childcare. He wasn't arrested for showing up, and his children had never been left unattended. But the officers stayed until it was clear he wasn't going upstairs. Daniel picked up the backpacks. Come on, kids. As they headed toward the doors, he didn't look at me. The consequences didn't end when he left. Building management permanently removed Daniel from my authorized visitors. His name and photograph were attached to the security notice requiring my direct approval before he could enter secured residential areas. Mom lost her emergency access completely. I placed my new spare key in the building's secure management lockbox instead. Then I changed my alarm code and removed Mom from every emergency access authorization connected to my condo. Management documented Daniel's 2 previous entries, along with everything that happened that morning. By that afternoon, Mom had started calling relatives. Her version was predictable. Apparently, I had humiliated Daniel in front of police because I didn't want to babysit. For once, I didn't call anyone to defend myself. I sent 2 screenshots. The first, I won't be home tomorrow. You need to make other arrangements. The second, doesn't matter. Mom gave me your spare key. Nothing else. The family group chat went strangely quiet. Then questions started going in the opposite direction. Why did Daniel have Samantha's key? Why was he planning to leave the kids when she wasn't home? Why had Patricia given away an emergency key without asking? Mom's version collapsed because Daniel had documented the truth himself. And something changed after that. Daniel started arranging childcare before making plans. Mom stopped volunteering my apartment, my time, or my belongings. They didn't suddenly become different people. They simply learned there were now consequences for ignoring my answer. For years, I'd been the one expected to adjust because giving in was easier than fighting with them. Now they had to adjust to me. Weeks later, I returned from another work trip. I walked down my hallway, stopped outside my condo, and unlocked the new door. Everything was exactly where I'd left it. Nothing missing. Nothing moved. No evidence that somebody had decided an empty apartment was an available apartment. I closed the door behind me and turned the lock. The silence inside felt different now. It belonged to me. Daniel thought having my spare key meant he didn't need my permission. By the next morning, he learned that my front door and my life were never his to unlock.